Welcome to another episode of Rare Connection, the podcast where we connect rare disease patients to rare disease patients, educate medical professionals and the general public, and strive to find clinical trials for the 95% of rare conditions that have no FDA-approved treatment yet. I'm your host, Joanna, and today we have a special guest, Melissa. Melissa's a dedicated mother of two. Her oldest, Taylor, is 27 and was diagnosed with Pura Syndrome in 2016. Taylor's younger brother, TJ, is 24 and a University of Washington graduate. And currently works as a financial consultant. TJ is the leader of Young Life Capernaum, a social group of young adults with special needs. Melissa is a full-time caregiver for Taylor. Before joining the Pura Syndrome Foundation board, Melissa was actively involved in the conference planning committee and grant committee, and she is currently serves as the U.S. ambassador. She is passionate about helping families find support and resources as needed on their Pura journey. Melissa, thank you for joining us. And since my screen is frozen, my cat is Sylvie, or otherwise known as my co-host here. Can you share Taylor's journey from the initial symptoms of the eventual diagnosis of Pura syndrome?
Sure. When Taylor was born, she was born with normal APGAR scores, but quickly within the next couple of days, we noticed we went home. Back then, you went home quite soon after delivery. So the next day at home, noticed more low tone. She had issues feeding. Those were the only things noticeable. There's really no dysmorphic features for children with Pura syndrome, which is a rare metabolic syndrome affecting the Pura protein. And so when she was 3 days old, she developed severe jaundice and wasn't feeding at all. Her responsiveness was down. So we brought her back to the hospital, where she was medevac to a larger hospital, where we spent around 6 weeks. They did all of the genetic testings at the time, came back normal. Her everything was normal: cranial ultrasound, MRI. Really couldn't find a reason for her extreme low tone and lack of responsiveness. And finally, we just worked on getting feedings. They had to do gavage feeding at first in the NICU, and she had some temperature instabilities. Jaundice was extremely high, didn't really respond to the light therapy. She did start to slowly wake up to at least feed on her own. So at 6 weeks old, we were able to go home on some oxygen. And she pretty much just slept her first year of life. We had absolutely no diagnosis. She did start to wake up and become more alert after the 1 year old, and was just very slow with her milestones, like extremely slow, pulling to stand around 2, could walk around objects, 4 or 5, had some independent walking earlier. And Taylor wasn't diagnosed until she was almost 23 years old. And at the time, she did have some endocrine issues. And so her endocrinologist did say, I believe that the testing is going to get better. And at some point you will have some metabolic diagnosis because of the way she didn't distribute her hormones and her growth hormones. So he had a feeling, and he was right. When they came out with the whole exome testing, we got through a panel at the Children's Hospital Seattle. They were doing actually a panel for epilepsy, because she did develop seizures around the age of 9, which unfortunately a lot of the Pura population the kids do develop epilepsy. And so through that whole exome testing, they found the diagnosis of Pura syndrome. And she was one of only 44 in the world at that time. And now we have at least 700 known, but most likely thousands and thousands more, especially because in the US, it was harder to get the whole exome testing. It's a very expensive test. We're trying to add it to a newborn screening panel. That's one of the things that we're advocating for. And also the kids that are like for Taylor, for example, a lot of people just accept the fact that you don't have a diagnosis. We just use the code of like low tone cerebral palsy. Instead of, being hypertone, she was considered hypotonic cerebral palsy. But I just felt like, again, with her endocrinologist, what he said, and just some different things we were noticing, like not going through puberty at a normal time, I really pushed for more testing. And we were able to get the diagnosis. And so I'm sure that there's just thousands more out there with Pura syndrome, as it's grown so fast in the 10 years that it's been. It's been 10 years this year, marks the anniversary of it being a known syndrome, and the foundation being formed, the Pura Syndrome Foundation being formed.
Yes, it's a fairly recent.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is also I noticed a ultra rare condition.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when she was first diagnosed, and that was 7 years ago, she was 44 in the world, so extremely rare. I think we're up. I did attend the Global Genes Rare Disease Conference in San Diego last year, and there's some organizations out there that have, still 40 to less than 100 kids. So I feel like Pura syndrome at some point is going to, they're going to find more of a patient population through the better testing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are starting to test for they're doing a clinical trial, I think, for the extended newborn screening right now. But did you, so you mentioned it's metabolic. Does it follow a special diet?
Well, that's something that they're still researching. What the pure protein is involved in many aspects in the body. It's not just like you're probably thinking of like PKU, where they don't break down a certain protein and there's a specific diet. We have tried different things like the ketogenic diet for seizures. And with Taylor, I do notice that she doesn't seem to, handle a lot of protein. So we are experimenting with different digestive enzymes. But there's no known specific diet right now for Pura syndrome. That is something that we do speak to the researchers about.
Right. And there is something that I have a condition called homocystinuria that's pretty closely related to PKU, but we're fighting for a Medical Nutrition Equity Act to be passed, and have been for probably about the past 20 years, though. It's been reintroduced into the House, but we're looking for a Senate Republican right now. And so, that one that it might eventually lead into something. Can you, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced during the diagnostic process? Right, the biggest challenges, yeah, basically.
Therapy clinics for the children, they're used to the high tone with the kids and not the low tone, so that was an added challenge. And you just feel like you're on your own. When she was first diagnosed, I was so thrilled, and my husband, he didn't quite understand why I was so thrilled, and there was just a plethora of reasons, like, and you have guilt. Did I wrap her up too tight? Did she not get enough water? What did I do? And just being able to find the community, because they already had a Facebook community, and talk with the other parents who went through almost identical situations in the newborn time. So that really helped. But up until the age of 23, I was just on my own, and advocating for Taylor with no diagnosis, because she was just so unusual. She's incredibly smart, but isn't able to vocalize much due to the low tone, the smooth muscles. So it just, every day was a new challenge. And as she grew and got taller, it, expounded the low tone, and just every year it seemed like we just had more and more challenges physically for Taylor.
As a full-time caregiver for Taylor, what does a typical day look like for you?
Well, things have changed a lot since she aged out of school. When she was in school, we were fortunate enough to have the same one-on-one aid, and I would feel comfortable with Taylor, especially after the seizure started. Just her care became more difficult. And then when she had to be in a wheelchair, as Taylor grew with the low tone, unfortunately she developed scoliosis. So the walking became much more of a challenge. So when she aged out of school, that was really a hardship, because she's not tube fed. Some of the Pura kids are tube fed, so she doesn't qualify for nursing, and I'm just not really comfortable because she does have a lot of medical needs, having just a random person in the house for a few hours a day. So it's just her and I every day until my husband gets home from work, and I call it Groundhog Day. I try and find different activities. She's still very active in going to physical therapy, swimming therapy, but it's a lot. You wake up and every day, if my husband comes home, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't get to this or that. And he's like, no, I've seen, especially during COVID when he was home with me for, 4 months, he said, wow, I really never noticed how much, how entailed, how lengthy the process is, just getting her up, getting her dressed, getting her fed, getting her meds down, and the other medical things I have to help her with. And so, we get that done. Try and have at least one activity planned. We're headed over to Lake Chelan later today. She loves it there, and she loves swimming. So I just try every day to try and find something, because I always think, well, I could hire somebody to come to the house and I get to go out, but she wants to go too. She's very aware, she's very intelligent, and she gets so excited when I tell her, like, this is what we're doing today, especially if it's something really fun, like going over to Lake Chelan, meeting with some of her friends. So I tell other parents day by day. I don't really like to talk about the fact that it does get more difficult and more involved the older that the children get, but I'm fortunate that I still have the energy, and I plan on keeping her with me always. So
yeah, I work as a caregiver also, so I can't tell you how important it is for people to get help when needed. I see so many people who that's the only person that they'll trust is the person that lives with them, and it causes health issues for them too.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and I'm working on it. I do have two younger sisters. They have their own families, but one of them's a school teacher, so in the summer she tries to come over, and I talk to, as I'm advocating for Pura Syndrome, I do realize that I need to talk about self-help and care more, because I'm very type A, and I'm not saying that that's the healthiest way to be, probably like that, my husband encourages me daily to hire somebody, but Taylor does, like, she locks eyes with me, and I know, even though she's nonverbal, I know her needs, and it's just really hard for me to separate myself from that. But it is something that I am trying to work on.
Yeah. I'm going to go back into that last question, because I couldn't hear a thing you were saying. The connection totally lost.
Okay.
So we were... how do you balance your caregiving responsibilities with your with other aspects of your life? Okay,
yeah, I was saying that basically that is 95% of my life. I'm fortunate to have a spouse, Taylor's father, that also puts Taylor first. So we take her. It's not that we don't have a life. We do. We just include her in every aspect of it. If we I would say once in a while, maybe once every couple of months, we will have my sister or her brother come in and sit with her if it's a special occasion to go out to eat. But we just take her. She likes to go. She doesn't want to sit. She wants to go. And so we travel. I try and encourage the other Pura parents that are afraid to travel, to fly. Each kid is individual, but she thoroughly enjoys going on trips and so excited when I do the countdown to the days to the plane. So makes it, the vacations aren't, and certainly not laying out in a lounge chair. We're going on a family trip to Hawaii with her brother soon, and it's it's like you feel is she comfortable in the wheelchair? Is she too hot? Help getting her in and out of the pool with my husband. And so it's not the same, but it's better than not doing anything. So I encourage all of the parents, do it. Go on the trips. Don't sit home. I have friends that have special needs children, and they never go on trips because they think it's going to be so much work. And it is. Just the packing of the medical supplies alone is a lot of work, but it's still fun. The kids benefit from it. You always have some fun. And so I'm probably not the best because I don't have any outside care for Taylor to talk about other responsibilities. Luckily I have a lot of energy. I get up and I go, and I just do one day at a time. So parents ask me sometimes, how do you do it? I'm like, one day at a time. I wake up, say my prayers, get her going, usually by 6 a.m. And I am fortunate. I was saying earlier, I don't know if you heard, that her brother was a very easy child, very easy to raise, did great in school, never gave us any trouble. And so that is one of the reasons that we did decide not to have other children, because once Taylor turned about 4 or 5, we realized there was going to be, more care involved for her. So I tried to, give him as much attention as I did Taylor, but now it's pretty much I just focus on Taylor and the work I'm doing with the Pura Syndrome Foundation.
Mm-hmm. How has Taylor's journey, how has Taylor's diagnosis impacted your family, especially TJ?
Well, I think, how could it not? I think that's probably one of the reasons why he became such a good and caring child. He loves his sister. He dotes on his sister. When he was in college, he signed up to do the Young Life Capernaum, like you said, and he still does that. Even though he's been out of college for years, he still is one of the leaders there at the group and takes the older kids with disabilities. They do bowling, they go to movies, ferry rides. So I'm really proud of him. Mm-hmm. But it affects the whole family. Even the rest of my mom and sister came with to the Pura Syndrome Foundation conference, and everybody tries to rally around Taylor, which is, luckily I have 6 brothers and sisters and a lot of aunts, uncles, cousins. And so even though we keep our circle tight with family, probably because of Taylor, there's a lot of interaction. And we were just at my niece's engagement party on Saturday, always like 50 people there. So we try and keep very active lifestyle with Taylor. But I'm sure it affected him. He's having he's got married last year, and they are expecting their first child. And one of the things with Pura Syndrome is it is de novo, so it's not genetically passed down. So there's no fear of that with him, but I know that he's always in the back of his head. One of the reasons he said he wanted to become a financial advisor is to possibly help, in that field with rare diseases. And he's always told me that he will, when we get older, he will step in and advocate for his sister.
Mm-hmm. What inspired you to become a actively involved in the Pura Syndrome Foundation?
Well, it started out just being asked to be on a grants committee and then the conference planning committee. And it's just, at the time it was just more fun than anything because you're doing these virtual Zooms with people that are in the same situation as you. At that time, we just had parents on the board. Now we're fortunate to have other members of the board. And then eventually they asked me to become a board member and the ambassador for the U.S. for Pura Syndrome. But one of the things that really made me excited and motivated to accept being a board member was I listened to a podcast, as it was, with Effie Parks, and she was doing the 12 commandments for a rare disease foundation. And being that my husband had served on the board before, and I've listened to a lot of the board meetings, I was pretty well aware of where the board, where the foundation was going. And I listened to this, and it kind of hit home with some of the things that we hadn't been doing. And again, these are just parents. These are rare disease, parents that are caring for a special needs child, doing the best that they can. So listening to this, though, I realized, okay, well, we need to work on this. We need to do this. And I think we had kind of a turnover in the board at the time. And there was some other members that were on the same page with exactly where they wanted to go with the foundation. And I attended the Global Genes Conference in San Diego, and it just reiterated everything I thought with this is we need to work on this, we need to add the clinicians network. So I had a list of like 3 different projects I wanted to work on the board, and we've really in the last year I'm excited with how much we've accomplished.
Can you describe your roles and contributions to the conference planning committee, grants committee, and the U.S. ambassador?
Well, with the grants committee, it's basically hearing proposals from researchers and scientists if they want a grant, or for example, we're funding a biobank in Germany right now, and so it's just you listen to basically their pitch and decide whether it's worth. You have to think of these funds as your child's funds, the best chance for a future, and so I take it really seriously when we approve a grant. The conference committee, we've been doing conferences every other year in the U.S., and then we alternate between Europe. We might start focusing, we have more of a U.S.-based population known right now, so we might start to do it like once every 3 years in Europe. But it's a lengthy process. We just had our conference in Chicago last June, and we've already had a conference committee meeting planning. You have to pick the location. You have to do the catering for the food. You have to organize activities and caregivings for the Pura kids that come, the speakers, flying in the speakers and the researchers from different countries, helping people get their visas that are out of the country to come to the conference. So there's a lot. It's more than I thought it would be joining the conference committee, but it's also so rewarding getting to network and see all of the families, and I think that it also motivates the researchers when they see the Pura kids and their families. It just kind of pushes them, they have put a face behind the diagnosis for them. So I think it's very vital to have an annual conference, and we're fortunate enough to be able to fund that every year.
Let's see, what resources or support systems have been most helpful to you and your family?
Again, I'm fortunate to have a very large family, so I think the best resources. It's difficult, to be honest. In Washington State, it was there wasn't a lot of help. We had some, birth to 3 programs, but we would go to California to do some physical therapy clinics 3 times a year and spend a month, and they did like intensive physical therapy clinics. And I realized then that certain states, every state is different, the resources that they have. And with Washington, it was very income-based, and it was a pretty low threshold. So if you make over a certain amount, you're not reimbursed for things like diapers, even if they need them at 25. The caregiving is until the child turns 18 is income-based if you want any respite care. So I haven't really utilized a lot from the state. They're working on that. There's more things now with the Pura Syndrome Foundation. We've networked with someone that does questionnaires and helps if anybody's struggling with anything mental, any anxiety. All of these parents, we all have anxiety, and sometimes you can have depression, and it's a lot being a rare disease caregiver because you're really in an unknown. You go to the doctors and they'll look at you and say, well, you know more than I do. I literally hear that from every single, and her network of doctors is so many, neurologists, endocrinologist, GI doctor, pulmonologist, orthopedist, and everyone you go to says you know best. And they're just telling the truth, and that's one thing that we're working on with doing the clinicians network, is so that they can network between each other and see what is working for the Pura kids, any therapies, supplements, medications, whatnot. So I do encourage people to reach out if they need help, and look at their state resources, take advantage of it, and work on self-care.
Mm-hmm. How do you hope how do you hope to help other families find the support and resources they need on the Pura journey?
We have virtual meetups we alternate the topics. Like I said, one of the self-help therapists that we'll bring on. We have parents fill out questionnaires if they needed more individual help. We like to put up a resource page on our website for different resources. We are working on a state-to-state, a list of all the different states' resources that they have. But I think just having, and that's part of my job as the ambassador, having the virtual meetups, in speaking to them, virtually, there's a lot of things that come up with, like different equipment that's working, and like the eye gaze computer, just different topics come up and gives us ideas for what we need to talk about next week. So I think just networking and knowing that you're not alone and other people are on the exact same journey as you has been really important, and something that I'd like to keep going with the Pura Syndrome Foundation.
What are some of the most significant challenges you faced as a caregiver, and how do you overcome them?
I'm probably learning, as we've talked about, to care for yourself and get the help you need, and getting organized. I have a friend who's very organized, has a rare disease child, having a book, if something happens. It's like, I know all the different medications that Taylor's on, and she pointed out to me, she's like, well, just because what if you got trapped in traffic and you weren't there to do the meds that night, or, writing out your daily routine. I have a book with the doctors in it, medications, time of day for the medications. So getting organized is something that I myself have had to work to better myself on, instead of just trying to keep everything in my head. And, learning to ask for help when you need it. It's hard for me. I don't like to ask for help, but I've learned that with my family, if I ask for help, they're right there for me. So you have to learn to have a tribe around you of other people, so they can step in. If you had a medical necessity where you weren't able to take care of your child, you have to be organized and prepared for others to be able to step in and help you easily.
See, can you share any memorable triumphs or moments of joy you experienced with Taylor?
Honestly, every day when I go get her out of bed and she smiles at me and that she can have joy in her life, I feel like, as a parent and as a caregiver, that's a triumph, and it seems so simple, but it's probably during the day, just knowing that she feels cared for and is happy, and is doing well and feels secure as a child, like intelligent with no voice. She needs to know that somebody has her back and somebody will speak up for her. And so I think if she could tell me, she would tell me she's proud the work that we're doing with the Pura Foundation, but most importantly, just having joy, and the joy that we have. She's such a blessing in our life. Some people ask, how can you do it? And I'm like, you'd be surprised what you could do, and you'd be surprised at the blessings and how much probably better of a person that it's made my husband and my son and I. And so I just thank God every morning for her and the blessing that she is in our lives.
Looking forward, what are your hopes and dreams for Taylor's future?
My hopes and dreams for Taylor's future is, again, just that she stays as healthy as she is, that she's well cared for. But I'd like to dive deeper. We're looking into drug repurposing. Rare disease, as you know, it's so underfunded and so under-researched, and there's statistics out there about there's 1 in 10 Americans have a rare disease. There's 7,000 existing rare diseases known, and only 5% have treatments. So we are really looking into, as a foundation, is funding the mouse models, doing the drug repurposing of known drugs that are known for other diseases. They can look at it and say, oh, you guys, epilepsy, you have the low tone, this works. We're actually doing some trials right now with certain drugs for the nerve motor junction and helping these children with their energy and tone. And I can only speak for Taylor, but for her, she's had some great breakthroughs and some skills that she had lost due to her tone. She has gotten back. So, advocating that we keep trying, search for a cure, but even if it's not a cure, just a therapeutic that would work for the Pura population.
What advice would you give to other parents and families who are just beginning their journey with Pura syndrome and any other rare disease?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I get that a lot. And probably my best advice is to breathe, to take a moment, and to treat every day, just one day at a time. It's too hard sometimes, and the younger parents, especially now that it's getting diagnosed much earlier stage. Some of these babies are getting their diagnosis in the first few weeks, month, and then they look and they see some of the Pura kids. They all have a different skill set. They're very varied in their abilities, but as they get older, more of them do have more needs, and I think it can be overwhelming. And I tell them, just treat your kid like today. Never underestimate, I think, is a great advice. Had I not been pushed to try different therapy clinics out here in Washington, they're like, this is all we can do. She's never going to walk. And we found this clinic in California when we were at an Abilities Expo, and they taught Taylor how to walk in 4 weeks. And so never give up, never underestimate your child, and be their voice, because they can't speak for themselves. So one day at a time is how I roll, and I just find happiness in every day and look forward to the next day and just not stress about the future. Do your best to prepare, obviously. I'm not saying to put a blindfold over your eyes, but to just live one day at a time really allows you to be able to handle. Some people say, how do you handle it? You have to do it one day at a time.
So Taylor can walk now?
Taylor was able to walk until the scoliosis. We're hoping she can still walk in the pool with some assistance. We're hoping to get it back. She's kind of on the cusp of whether they're recommending surgery or not. So, she was able to, it wasn't the best gait. I had to stay near her, but she could walk across the room, turn the corner, and that didn't happen until she was 9. So very recently, due to the scoliosis causing a lot of sciatica pain and hip pain, she is non-ambulatory, but she did walk for many, many years.
How can you how can they best advocate for how can people best advocate for their children and find support they need?
And so staying up, I really encourage people to get involved in their local rare disease community in some form or another, even if it's just attending the meetings, attending them virtually, signing up for the newsletters. How
can listeners get involved or support the Pura Syndrome community?
We are celebrating, like I said, 10 years of finding naming the Pura Syndrome and forming the foundation. And we started a campaign actually just last week after the conference. It's going to go through October, which is our actual 10-year anniversary. And we are looking to raise $250,000. It's called Together for Pura. And we are forming teams of parents. I created a team called Taylor's Tribe. And we are going to do a fundraising event in October, but also throughout then I'm doing blasts on social media to let people realize that donating, I know everybody has somebody that knows somebody with heart disease and knows somebody, with diabetes, and as important as that is, it's very well funded, and rare disease is very underfunded. And so I think, expressing why it's important to fundraise for these rare diseases is important. So I have a little flyer, I'm not sure if you can see. But we're forming, and then we're going to, people can just donate in general, or a lot of the parents, we're meeting with them every week to help set up these teams, and then they're doing, marathons, we're going to be doing silent auctions. So it's a big push this year. We're looking to hire a scientific director and really put the money into the drug repurposing for the foundation. And as you know, all of that's very expensive. So we're excited to do a big fundraising push this year.
Are there any upcoming events or initiatives that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, I will be representing the Pura Foundation at the Rare Epilepsy Network conference. It's going to be in December in Los Angeles, and we have somebody attending the event, the rare disease event in Washington, D.C. Another board member from the East Coast is going to be attending that. We're doing our silent auction for the Pura Syndrome in October. And as always, we will have the annual conference the third weekend of June 2025. And the location is to be determined. We should be finalizing that this month. So just staying active. I really find a lot of encouragement and advice going to these rare disease coalitions, the various ones, the NORD and Global Genes are a couple that come to mind right away. But staying involved with those just helps you network and get advice to move forward as a foundation.
Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of Rare Connection. Melissa, it's been a privilege to hear your story and learn about your incredible journey with Taylor and the Pura Syndrome community. Before we close, I want to remind everyone of the importance of mental health. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available 24/7 at 1-800-273-8255. You are not alone. There is always someone to talk to. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rare Chef. I also have cooking videos that I put on here, and our podcast, Rare Connection. Your support helps us reach more people and make a bigger impact. We are also on Facebook. We also have a Facebook group and Facebook page under Rare Connection where you can join our community, share your experiences, and find additional resources and support. Lastly, I'm excited to announce that we're in the process of starting a nonprofit under Rare Connection. We're looking for passionate volunteer board members and who want to make a difference in the rare disease community. If you're interested, you can contact me, either comment below, or you can also text me if you're listening to the audio only version through the link in the show notes. And there is also, you can email me, joanna.ball38@yahoo.com. Thank you again for listening, and stay connected, stay informed, and remember that together we can make a difference. See you next time on Rare Connection. Thanks.